is doing the, I'm not sure what, his first speech from the Advanced Communication Manual. It's an 8 to 10 minute speech. It's on engineering and construction, and it's titled The Briefing. Please help me welcome Lee Hayden.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Today's briefing is on the engineering and construction industry. I'll tell you what's going on in the industry just to give you a synopsis, and at the end of it, I'll take your questions. Now, most of you, if you've been to large cities, or even mid-sized cities, including Houston, of course, are aware of the skyline. You know, you've seen those wonderful buildings, beautifully sculptured and designed. And this is the industry that is concerned with that. The engineering and construction industry is concerned with building of bridges, waterways, large commercial and residential complexes. And I'll refer to it as E&C, just for shortened form. The firms operate, the larger firms operate internationally and domestically. Of course, the smaller firms operate regionally and sometimes nationally as well. Subspecialties in the engineering industry are environmental, geotechnical, structural, transportation, urban, water resources, coastal, and construction. The field that is responsible for engineering and construction, of course, is civil engineering. Most of you may have heard of that field. Now, here are examples of some of the wonderful designs and of buildings. This is the Petronas Twin Towers in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. It was built about 10 years ago. Here's another example of engineering marvel. It is the Burj Al Arab Hotel, and this is in Dubai, which is in United Arab Emirates. This building is actually a part of a larger complex. They have several man-made islands, and the islands are all formed to, sculpted to form a palm leaf. So the whole shot is really beautiful. Unfortunately, this was the only thing I could find at the time. We're all aware of the Hoover Dam. How many people have been to the Hoover Dam? Would you say that that's an engineering marvel?
Yes.
Absolutely. Great. Wonderful. Continuing. The industry is facing several challenges today. You may have heard, and maybe even personally aware, that there's a construction, in the construction industry, the economic conditions have really decreased the amount of building and constructions that's going on. And part of the reason for that is because of deteriorating financial and economic conditions, especially when it comes to long-term projects. There just isn't the funding out there anymore because of the return that is often experienced. If real estate prices are down, there's not the incentive to build. There aren't the loans out there because, of course, they have to pay back these loans and they require a higher interest rate to do so. So there's a shrinking global market because there are fewer large projects. And, of course, I described those projects earlier, the large bridges, the highway projects, and commercial towers. Another thing that's affecting the engineering and construction industry is a shortage of technical skills. Engineers who both design, test, and build these mega structures, there's a shortage of supply for those engineers. Now, there was a survey taken in 2009, and the survey data reflects up to 2009. And the firms confirmed, this was done with CEOs, and they confirmed that the impact of the credit crunch has really had a negative impact on the industry. And so these firms are really looking around now for projects. They have to be planning several years ahead in order to overcome some of the challenges they're facing right now. So there are fewer big projects for them, and the other thing they're doing to get past this is not only to look in the US, which is considered a mature market, but to look overseas in Central Europe, Eastern Europe, and the Middle East as well, where the opportunity for growth with larger projects is more substantial than here in the US. Of course, if there are fewer projects for all the firms that are out there, there is more competition. If there's more competition, it becomes more difficult to capture the growth, the aggressive growth that they've set. Once again, I refer to the human capital, the shortage of technical skills. And what they're much like they're doing in other technical industries, especially in IT and healthcare. So they're in a search for major projects, not only domestically, but overseas as well. The demand for infrastructure has gone down, with the exception of a few budding markets, and those are Asia, Central and Eastern Europe, and of course the Middle East. The increase in costs affect the projects, of course. Fuel increases. Connie, you have a question?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. The cost of fuel, and as I mentioned before, if there's a labor shortage, that means the price of labor becomes a premium. They have to move their current labor force to overseas projects in order to leverage their resources more efficiently. Financial losses in the investment market. You've heard of the bond market. They sell bonds to finance these long-term projects. That's going away, or at least there are fewer of them right now. Credit market risk and so forth have all decreased. The industry, however, interestingly enough, is well on the way to capturing, at least in 2008, $1 trillion worth of revenue. To be exact, $684 billion. We can be sure that in 2009 and 2010, it is substantially less than that. The proof is suggested here when we look at the merger and acquisition activity. In 2008, they had $4.6 billion worth of mergers and acquisition. In 2009, it was only $1.8 billion. You might be wondering what who some of the engineering firms are. Here's a list of them. You may have heard of things like Mustang Engineering, like here. Jacobs Engineering is also just down the road on Beltway 8. So we have a number of them here in Houston. There are 4 primary factors that affect the acquisition of jobs, the acquisition process. And that is costs, that is the price of the project, financing, the client getting money to finance these long-term projects. Sometimes they take 10 years or more. Technical skills, once again, referring to human capital or human resources, and the technical capability to build those things I showed you earlier on. Not every or any engineering firm can do that. Now, for what I've just covered here, do you have any questions on that? Yes, please.
Apart from the economic focus that you're portraying on your presentation, are you an engineer? Are you an engineer?
No, I'm not.
Okay. What kind of focus the engineers are projecting, apart from the economy, the future global changes, global climatic changes that are coming up? For example, Middle East, Dubai, they're afraid the months with the rains that are coming up now, there could be a structural problem over the next 30 years for all the big things that are coming up.
Okay.
Because it's a sandy formation. What kind of comment?
That's a very good question. I can answer that in part. One of the things engineering and construction firms are doing now is to build greener buildings. The other thing they're doing, to answer your question more directly, is developing technical models. They have computer models that really are more accurate in reflecting the realistic situation. So that's how they're dealing with that. Other questions, please. Thank you. Yes?
What's the job outlook for construction engineers?
Once the economy recovers, the construction industry will recover because real estate values will be back up on the rise. And so the outlook is eventually the construction market will recover. It's a matter of when.
Would it be easy for these industries, or E&C industry, to move, if construction of buildings has slowed, could they move into the construction of transportation systems, like those wonderful maglev trains or high-speed trains or new forms of air?
If you're talking about the trains themselves, that's another industry. That's the transportation industry. If you're talking about large-scale construction of the transportation rail, that is included in the forecast I just mentioned a while ago. Once again, there's simply just not enough money out there. Bonds that are being sold to finance these projects, interest rates and so forth, are not as available as they've been in the past. Yes?
In the human resource area, is there the reason for the decline is it because of not enough students are looking at this type of engineering as a career?
Yes.
Okay. And is there anything being done about that, or recruiting or anything to help get people to see that this may be a need?
Well, according to
some students graduate from high school not knowing what they want to do,
right.
And if this is an industry that is, needing, resources.
According to what's being done now, it's really short to midterm planning. These firms, the engineering and construction firms, are looking for fully qualified, fully skilled engineers, whether it be domestically or internationally. Looking further